Joey, how are you, man?
Hey, good. And you, brother?
Yeah, really good. Hey, I'm so pleased that you made it onto the show because I know there's a lot of people that want to hear Joey's stories, and I know you've got a lot of stories to share, so I hope you're patient and they've got a lot of time to listen to this podcast because I feel like it might be a long one.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever it takes. All good.
Yeah. So how have you been? Everything good down there in South Africa?
Yeah, all good. I think we're nearly at 0.5% of the population vaccinated now. So by 2032-ish, we should be through everyone. But that's the joys of living in Africa.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm actually in the UK at the moment. I'm at my parents' house, so I've just made this my little podcast office here.
Nothing wrong. Looks good.
Stole a couple of pictures from my dad's office, and yeah, so I'm in quarantine in the UK, so it's a perfect time to hang out with my buddy Joey and talk some crap.
There you go. I like it. Yeah. Same this side. Yeah. You know, we kind of there's not a lot of things going on. I'm doing the talks and stuff, but the talks involves a lot of travel and conferences and stuff. So without that, I do a few online ones and a few smaller ones here and there, but otherwise pretty quiet as well.
Yeah. And we're going to come on to that. We're going to come on to all about your talks and what you do these days. But let's. Have you got a drink? Are you all set to go? Yeah.
Sorted.
I've got a pint of Strongbow, of a Dakar Racers Strongbow water.
Yeah, mine is sugar free due to my my issues with combating my weight. It's not important. Let's just move on.
Okay, cool. Listen, let's rewind a little bit to kind of when we got to know each other. The first time I met you was at Dakar 2017, and I'd barely really heard about this Joey Evans guy before then. Like, I think you knew about me because of Races to Places, so maybe you just want to tell everybody how you kind of got to know about me, and then I will talk about the first time we met and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, so it actually wasn't Races to Places. It was actually on as an adventure rider that one in the States, the online one. And I
AdventureRider.com.
Yeah. AdventureRider.com, that's it. And what I did is I read the post that you'd put up there, or the thread, whatever you want to call it, because I was coming up towards Dakar, or I had this dream to race Dakar, you know what I mean, for many years. And then I started, so I was looking, you know what it's like, you scour the internet for everything Dakar and you read it and stuff. And I found that one that you did on your first Dakar. So going back, what was it? Was it 2013?
2013.
Yeah, 2013. So I read that whole thread, and I read about how you had your fork break and you fixed your fork, the foot of your fork or whatever in the desert and all that type of jazz. And that was how I got to know who you were. And then what I did is I dropped you a mail or a message, I don't remember now, and I just said, hey man, I'm racing 2017 when that came along, and I said I'll see you there. And you replied, I can't remember, you were like, hello commoner, or no, I can't remember. But it was one of those where it was like, hey man, yeah, good luck and all that sort of stuff, we'll see you there. And I was like, oh, brilliant. And then I bumped into that bivouac, that one that was so badly flooded in South America, where they had all the crates out and stuff.
Was it halfway through the Dakar when I actually met you?
I think it was.
Man, if I recall. I couldn't even work on my bike that night.
No, that was terrible. It was
so bad.
Terrible. And I'd torn the ligaments in my knee just the day before.
It's unlike you to get injured, Joey.
Yeah, I know. Everyone was very shocked. But it was so I torn the ligaments in my knee. This whole place is flooded, and I'm like, I think it must have been about day 5, day 6, and I'm like, yeah, man, this is. I was at the stage where I'm like, I don't see me getting to the end of this, if I was being honest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you did, and we're going to come on to that as well. So we met at Dakar 17. And to be fair, we've been good mates since then. I mean, we've gone on to do some pretty crazy stuff together. But for those that are listening that don't know Joey Evans, you had a bit of a crazy story before you even got to Dakar. I mean, tell everyone about your history and what happened before you went to Dakar.
Yeah, sure. So it's a bit of a long story, so I'll try to give you the short version. So the short version was I grew up on bicycles. I didn't grow up with motorcycles. I always wanted motorcycles, but it just wasn't something we could afford. You know, I grew up one of 6 children, so a big family and that kind of stuff. And I got married pretty young. I was 23 when I got married, and by the time I was 28, I had 4 daughters already. So, but as I always like to say, if you have a talent, you should use it, you know?
Yeah, right.
But but it was one of those. So, and then I bought my first motorcycle when I was 26. Which is obviously very late for a lot of guys who race, because you kind of grow up on motorbikes and that kind of stuff. And then I got into motocross to start with, and then after motocross I did some freestyle motocross. You know, I wasn't one of these guys that did backflips and stuff, but I could do a can and a heel clicker and some of the basic sort of tricks, you know. But nice. I love freestyle and stuff. And then I heard about Dakar, and I was like, this is a cool race, man, because I love the outdoors, I love the camping, the survival, all that type of stuff. And so when I heard about Dakar and I saw some stuff on TV, I was like, this is my race, man. I got to go do Dakar. And so I started finding out more and more about it, but obviously it was just something that was just way too expensive for where I was, way too long for having small children and all this type of stuff. And it was just like, but I was always like, hey, one day, you know, it'll be in the future, but one day I'm gonna go and do that race. And then in 2007, you know, I did a lot of local racing, things like the Roof of Africa and the Botswana Desert Race and that type of stuff. In the meantime, local championships and things. But in 2007 was the big one. You know, I was lying second in the regional championship here for off-road racing, and I lined up at the start of the second last race of the season, second in the championship. If I won that race, I knew I could win this championship, and it just was like everything to me, you know. And that flag dropped, and that start flag dropped, and that was the last thing I remembered. And the next thing I remembered was waking up, lying in the dirt. You know, I was missing half of my teeth. I'd smashed out a bunch of my teeth, and I couldn't feel my legs. And so, you know, and it turned out I'd broken my back. And long story short, I was paralyzed from the chest down. I'd broken my T8, T9 vertebra, so sort of about this height here, and everything below there, no movement, no feeling, all gone. And what followed was being transported to 3 different hospitals, and then it was finding out that, you know, they said I wouldn't walk again, and this would be the rest of my life, and it was tough. That was a tough thing to accept.
Can't
and it was
imagine.
like everything's gone. You know, you like your whole life, everything's destroyed. Dream. Yeah. And then they fused my back and things, and I decided in the hospital that I don't know how I was going to do it, but I was like, I'm still going to race the Dakar, man, whatever it takes. That became like my big goal, and that became my motivation, you know, my physical motivation to get better, to get stronger, and to keep working towards this goal. And I was fortunate enough that I started to get a little bit of movement in my legs again, after they'd fused my back and taken some pressure off the spinal cord, and learned to walk again slowly. And then 2.5 years later, I rode a bike for the first time. I couldn't even hold it up. You know, I got on the bike and I fell over. My buddies had to pick me up again. You know, they were laughing at me as buddies do. And eventually I rode this bike just in a little circle around this field, and this dream to race Dakar was back on. And then it took me, from when I broke my back to when I got to the start line of the Dakar, it took me 10 years. Yep. And then in 2017, stood on the start line with you down in South America to race the Dakar Rally.
Awesome. That was a really fast summary, and I know there's a load more detail in that. For anybody that wants to read more about the detail, they should definitely get your book, From Para to Dakar, because it's got so much stuff in there that, like, it's an inspirational read. And one thing that you said there, you said from that date, that when you decided I'm going to race the Dakar, that was what gave you the determination to do it. And it's the same with so many things. Like, I think about my Dakars, and, you know, when I've been motivated to achieve something big like that, that's when you set your mind to it and you work your best, you know, and nothing is getting in your way. So we'll come on to that, because I'm sure there's going to be a repeat thread throughout this call, but I'm sure there's many times where you've had to, you know, set your sights on something like I have and be determined to achieve it. So But thanks for running through that story. Anybody that wants to get your book, I have them on my website. You sell them also, yeah, through your website.
Yeah, but I can only do South Africa, but you can also get them on Amazon.
Amazon.
And it's available in audio. So you can just listen to it, on Audible. It's available on as an ebook and as a printed copy. So
awesome.
Either way,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, so awesome.
Quick punt.
Yeah, quick. Well, we'll get out of the way early, and
Thank you.
Okay, so title of this podcast, and welcome everybody to A Last Place is a Finish. Why did I call it A Last Place is a Finish? Well, Joey has got a little bit of a theme going in his racing career, especially his rally career, where he tends to finish quite far down the pack. But the main thing is he finishes. And, that to me is like, it's awesome. Like, Joey has got a better finish rate at rally racing than I have. So you have 100% finish rate at rallies, correct?
That's it, yep.
100% finish rate, 8 races. Correct, yeah? 8 races, 100% finish race. I don't know how many races I've done, quite a few, but I know I've had a couple of DNFs for various reasons, and it's usually through injuring myself. So I'm already kicking myself, thinking I should have sucked up and rode to the end. But, we can't change that. So, we just talked about determination, and you've had some pretty tough races, so I'm going to let you explain just a couple of those. I can think of the 2 biggest. Well, actually there's 3, right?
There's a few.
There's 3. 2 of them involve animals, and the other one you can explain, but let's just do them in order. Just tell the listeners some of the issues you've had and how you got through it.
Perfect. Well, what I'll do is I'll start off here, because when I came back to racing, because obviously I had this goal to race Dakar, and in order to race Dakar, you can't just pitch up at the start line. You've got to have your racing CV. You've got to have done, a certain amount of races. They want to see that you can race. They want you to have done several multiple day races, and then obviously you need to finish an international rally, in the top class, pro class, whatever you want to call it. You got to do the full race, and then they would consider accepting your entry to Dakar. So here I am, I'd broken my back, I'd ridden again for the first time 2.5 years later, and now I'm like, hey man, I want to go race this Dakar. So now, in order to do that, I've got to start racing again. That's the bottom line. And now coming back to racing, I started that first race, and it became so apparent so quickly that I was not competitive anymore, that those days are gone. With my legs not working properly and stuff, it was just a case of I was nowhere. My first race, I was lapped 6 times, to give you an idea. And I finished 1 lap where some guys finished 6 laps over 3 hours. So it was really bad. And so the big lesson I learned there, which kind of changed my whole headspace, was that I'm not racing the other guys anymore. That now I'm racing myself. I'm racing myself. I'm racing my own limitations, and I'm racing my own goals and dreams, and I'm racing against my own physical disabilities. And so that changed my headspace a lot. Where so it didn't matter positions anymore. I couldn't care less about position. What mattered was finishing. And that first race, I was time barred. After 1 lap, I was time barred, and I got time barred again and again. And I realized that being time barred was cool. I'm happy to be time barred, but I'm not happy to quit. And that was where I drew that difference. And so I will be in that race until I'm out of time. And when you're out of time, you're out of time. But that's the way to go out of races, is to be time barred. Not to quit. And so that started off me on this track. And then over the years, I started doing just the single races. I'm actually going to tell you a story that you don't know about, cool. where you talk about, because it's not in the book or anything like that. And what it was it was actually before I broke my back, but it was when I got this kind of, oh man, there's so many stories, I don't know where to start, but I'm going to tell you this one. So this was Roof of Africa. This was Roof of Africa 2006. and it was a 3-day race, and you do your kind of time trials the first day, and then it's like 2 full days of racing. And I hadn't done a big multiple day race like this, you know, up until this point. So it was one of my first big ones. And I was looking at this and I was like, okay, man, this is 3 days. I've got to be smart here, you know. And I know one of the things that happens is your butt gets really sore, you know. So I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to wear some cycling pants, you know, under my riding gear, you know, just to help, you know. And it got through the time trial fine. And then on the first big day, I'm racing along, and now the hours have just added up and added up and added up. But what's happened is these cycling pants have held my butt cheeks like so tight together. So it squished them together. And what was happening, my butt cheeks were just rubbing like this and chafing like crazy. So it's like halfway through this day and I'm in pain, man. I'm in so much pain, you know. This just isn't working out. But the problem is there's like spectators around and stuff, and in Lesotho there's no like trees and stuff. It's just like felt grass, which is very low, and it's rocks. I mean, it's pretty much rocks, the whole country. And so you can't like duck away and go and get these pants off. Now obviously if you're wearing cycling pants under your riding gear, in order to get them off, you've got to take your boots off, you've got to take your pants off. And now I don't have any jocks on underneath these cycling pants, so I've got to like literally strip butt naked in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. Come on, Joey, suck it up. It's just a bit of chafing and stuff. And so I kept going through the day, and I'm just sucking this up, and I'm like, man, I'm in pain, but I've just got to get through this day. And I got through the day, and I get back to the pits, you know, that evening, and we had a little hotel room there at the Maseri Sun, and I go up into the hotel room, and I strip this kit off, and it's just blood. There's just blood in all these in all these cycling shorts. I've chafed so much that I'm just bleeding, and I'm like, man, this. What am I going to do? I've got to do a whole nother day still to finish this race. Yeah. And so I was there in Lesotho with my buddy Sheldon. He was pitting for me. And I go into the bathroom and I run the bath and stuff, and I get in the bath and it's like ooh, you know, kind of thing. And then I get in there and I'm thinking, what am I going to do, man? And I'm thinking, okay, so you know what it's like, you wear that tape on your hands, you know, where you that like it doesn't stretch, but it's like highly adhesive. And so I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tape and I'm going to tape up the inside of both my butt cheeks. And so the tape will rub against each other, and that way I can get through the last day. And so, but the problem is, you know, here I am. At the time, I was what, 31 years old. I'm a 31-year-old guy, and I have a hairy bum. And so this tape is not going to stick that great. So I'm thinking I've got to shave my butt. But I didn't bring a razor, you know, but Sheldon brought a razor. And so I just kind of nabbed his razor out of his bag, and I got my legs up on the bath, and I just shaved my butt, you know, right down towards my knot, and just got it nice and baby smooth. And then you know, then the next morning I was ready, and I taped up right on the inside of my butt and everything. And I raced that last day, and I finished the Roof of Africa, which was a good finish. And I told Sheldon I'd used his razor. I think about 2 weeks later. And so, but it was that was probably one of the first races that was really like you know, dig deep, make a plan, and finish that race. You know, and then
I feel your pain. I've been there before, and it's funny. We just did one of my rally trainings in Spain, and a couple of the guys had that issue, hairy butt, big chafing problems, because you're riding all day long, and I'm like, well, let me share some of my experience with you.
Oh man, so but that was one of those ones where it was like, you know, I was a mess, you know, you're all cut up and stuff, and you know you're going to be in pain the next day, and it's very easy to put up your hand and say, hey man, I'm out, you know what I mean, injuries or complications, whatever, and leave the race. But that was one of the first suck up sort of ones, you know. And then coming back after breaking my back and now realizing I'm racing myself and all these kind of things, it was a lot of those sort of lessons of just like push through and finish that kind of helped. And so I went on then, and then there was I raced the Amageza Rallies here in South Africa. I did 3 of those, as well as what they called the Amageza Baja, which was a bit of a shorter one. But I raced those ones, and those ranged from 3 days to 7 days, those rallies. And Yeah, I had one on the on one of the days that was I think it was, what was it, 2015, where
I'm
I had
laughing already because I know what's coming, and I'm like, go on, keep going.
No, that's fine. I don't know which one you're laughing at because there's so many. Which one do you want to hear?
Just
which one do you want to hear?
Okay. You tell them what you like.
So with that one, it was one where I went through a fence. So what happened was it was day 5 of a 7-day race. We're up at the Huxkian Pan up on the border of Botswana in South Africa, and they put these fences across the pan now and again, you know, for animals and things. And right by the start, the road book was out because they started in the wrong position. So I'm expecting this fence to come up at kilometer 6, and it suddenly came up at kilometer 4, like right near the start. But the sun was just peeking over the horizon, the dust was hanging in the air, and I'm racing across this flat salt pan. So it's when you're going fast, you know, and suddenly this fence just comes up through the dust. Man, and I just hit the brakes trying to scrub as much speed as possible, and I just went straight into this fence, man, and the wires like stretched out and then they broke, and this bike just went cartwheeling across the pan. And I mean, you know what it's like, Lyndon, when you crash a motorcycle off-road. Through your goggles, all you can see is like sky ground, dust. And then you like lie there winded, and you're trying to get that first breath, and you know, trying to stand up. And then I had to fix up my bike. I was okay. I wasn't injured that time, surprisingly. And then I fixed the bike up and I carried on riding. And then later that day, my moose just like disintegrated completely, and it blew chunks out of my tire. I'll see if I can send you a pic that we can pop up with it. And
I also have drone footage of another South African that did the same thing with the fence. That hit the fence. He was flying.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask him if I can have it, and I'll put it in here because it gives you some kind of indication of like, wah, and then like, wah, and then boom, like, and you can see it all on this drone footage. I'll see if I can put it in for fun. Yeah.
That'd be super cool, because the thing is, when you hit a fence, it's such a risky thing, because you can get something around the neck, and obviously you get normal fences and you get barbed wire fences. Fortunately, mine wasn't barbed. It was just a normal fence. But I mean, when you go through a fence, man, it reminds me of those. Remember those like wire things that you'd use on a potato to cut the chips? You know, kind of. It's kind of like you're going straight on into one of those. But yeah, so later in that day, my moose failed and everything, and I managed to like I had an inner tube which was given to me by another guy, but it was just all chafed up, you know. My buddy Dave gave me an inner tube, but it had been folded up on his bike for 6 days and chafed all the way through, and so I couldn't use it. And the last 2 guys in the race who were behind me, they gave me another inner tube and a little bicycle pump. And so I took we have what we call a liquor-fruit box. I think you guys call them Tetra Packs or whatever. And so I flattened this thing and I lined it inside the tire to cover this hole.
Like an orange juice box, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
And then I had a map of Botswana folded up in a plastic sleeve, you know, and I put that inside the tire, and I cut open the dodgy inner tube. I wrapped it around the good inner tube. I got it back inside the rim, and I covered it in cable ties, and I pumped this thing up with this little bicycle pump, and the other tube was damaged as well. And so I ended up just limping away, you know, with this flat tire, and I still had 230 kilometers to go, and I'm like, the race is over, you know, we're wasting our time. But I was like, I'm only going out if I'm time barred, man. I'm not going to go out before I'm time barred. And at this point, it's important to note, for the guys that don't know rally so much, that rally's so different to normal racing, because often there's no time bar that day. The only rule is you got to be on the start line for your start time the next day. And so you can ride at night, and this is one of the big differences between a lot of riders. Some riders won't ride at night, and other riders are happy to ride at night, and I'm happy to ride at night, you know. And
you enjoy riding at night, right?
It's my speciality, and so you know, I just decided that's what I was going to do. Wherever I was at 5 o'clock the next morning, which was my start time, that's when I'm out of this race. You know, there was no ways I could do it because the tire was destroyed and I'm limping along, and then 3 hours later I bump into 2 guys. That's the one guy's got he seized his motor. They're out the race. They're heading back to the main road where their team's going to pick him up. They're done. And I'm like, so you guys are out the race? They're like, yeah, we're out the race. And I'm like, that is that's a nice tire you got there. And the guys, we pulled the one wheel out of the one bike, we put it into mine, and I rode that night, and I got in about 11 p.m. and managed to finish that race eventually. And so that was one that was just a bit of a crazy one to start off with. And then on we went through the years, and obviously at Dakar was a big one, which we can maybe tell that story as well if you want.
Yeah, go for it. Tell it.
All right. Okay, so
Dakar 17.
Dakar 2017. Yep, you were there.
I wrote that very same piece. I know exactly where it was.
Yep. Yeah. It was so Dakar 2017 for me was obviously just this massive, this big thing to be there. You know, I'd had to raise a lot of money to get there. I couldn't afford to do the race on my own. So we'd done all sorts of stuff. So it was really important to me, knowing a bit about my story now, that it was so important that I finished this race, you know. And yeah, we lined up on that start line and off we went, and obviously, you know, things happened, and I spent a lot of time on the bike. You know, I was doing like 16-hour days and sleeping 4 to 6 hours a night. And then on day 4, I taught, yeah.
We actually hooked up, didn't we? At one point, I remember, and we swapped GoPros.
Yes, that's right.
For some reason, we were on the same liaison. And I said, it'll be really cool, let's just swap GoPros so that we can film each other. I remember that. I don't know when it was, I can't remember, but
I can't remember which day either, but it was one of the days, and we were on a super long liaison. It was boring as hell, you know. And so we were both doing what do they call it? I think they call it Dakar Heroes, that like YouTube channel for Dakar. YouTube. And so we swapped GoPros, and I remember we were like pretending we were swimming on the bike, and you know, all that sort of stuff. We just kind of trying to kill time, if you know. That would probably be the best way to describe it. But it was that was a good time. But I tore ligaments in my knee on day 4, and I thought, no, look, I'm done, you know. But I had like this brace on, I had it all taped up and things. It was just on the inside of my knee, and I kind of hacked my way through. And I had long days, and you know, it was a couple nights. There was one night I got in at 3:30 in the morning. I got in another time after midnight.
That was the day that your clutch had a problem, yeah?
Yeah, that's it.
I remember that from the book.
Yeah, had the clutch problem. There was all sorts of things, and I mean, obviously, I'd give a good detailed description of it all in the book and what happened and things. But it all kind of came to a head on the second last day, and you know, on the second last day, the previous day I'd had some challenges. You know, I had a crash the previous day, and I'd buckled the wheel and all sorts of stuff, and so I ended up finishing the previous day last, and so. On that second last day, I started last in the bike category, and
but to be fair, when you get to day 10, you're already starting to think, I got this. Yeah. You're already starting to think 2 more days to go. I got this covered, you know.
Yeah, you do, and it's like the truth is with Dakar, anything can happen at any time, which anyone who races will tell you that, And so it was a case of like, I'm like, yeah, cool, we got this. I think we're going to finish, you know. Now, I mean, I'm destroyed, but I'm like, I think we got this. And so I started that second last day in last position. And so, you know, I start up and I passed maybe 1 or 2 guys pretty early on in the special, and then they passed me again, and that kind of stuff. And then I entered the section, which was this parallel dirt track, like winding through this like semi-arid sort of environment. But the tracks had got deeper and deeper over the years. And so it was like 2 parallel ruts. And then they were filled with fish, because it was obviously like a dry sort of lake bed, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And so it has all that like fish, and it blows into the tracks. But the thing is, as a biker, you can't ride the center island because it's too steep, and you can't ride out because there's like a bit of vegetation here and there. So you have to pick a rut and just stick in that rut the whole time. And I'm racing. Yeah, that's it. And you know, if you try to like cross ruts or something, you're going down. And but the cars and the trucks, you know, those guys with the 4 wheels, they can fly through there because they can get in and out of ruts and that kind of stuff. But as a biker, you sit in a rut and you just go. And I was racing along in that left-hand rut, second last day. You know, I can finish this race, and I was just going to say, I remember exactly what it was. For me, it was like an army training ground almost. Yeah. You know, it was like tanks had been through there and just made these tracks and stuff, and just over and over and over again. I actually got caught by a Camel truck in that set. I remember it. I remember it. I got caught by. I'm sure it was a truck because it was close towards the end of the stage. Yeah.
was getting on in the okay.
No, not where I went down. That was early in the stage. There was other sections like that, but the one where I was there at about 10 in the morning. So you wouldn't have get caught by a truck.
It was early.
You would have only got a truck later. Yeah.
It was later on the stage, but I remember those tracks of that day. I remember just thinking, man, this doesn't stop. It's just like deep ruts and sand and everything.
It was terrible. But there was various stages similar to that. But at that particular one, I was in this left-hand rut, and my siren went off, which says there's a guy behind me that wants to pass.
There's a car coming. Yeah, a car or a truck.
That's it. And it was saying beep 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 beep. And you turn around, and normally, as you know, they're like 200 meters back or something. You know, they normally give you plenty. And the guy's like 30 meters behind me, and he's doing like double my speed. And I know he's expecting me just to swerve out of the way. And so I swing my bars over to try and just get out the way and swerve into the bush kind of thing. And right where I was, that rut was particularly deep, and that front wheel just caught against the inside of the rut. And I'd committed my weight, and I'm going over, and I just separate off this bike. And I just hear crunch, man. And this guy just crashes straight into my bike and completely rides right over my bike. And I cannot even tell you, you know what that felt like.
I'm going to put a photo of the bike right here. So
perfect.
Guys, I'll have a look at this. Car has just run over Joey's bike. Second to last day at Dakar 2017. And look, like the fuel cap's off it, like things missing, the exhaust completely crushed.
The exhaust is flattened, and the exhaust was bent into the back wheel, so the back wheel couldn't even turn. The two of the petrol tanks, so the back petrol tank's completely destroyed. The front right petrol tank's completely destroyed. The whole road book was just mangled and destroyed. In fact, I've actually got the road book here, so I'll show you this road book here if we can see that there. So that's
not too badly damaged.
That's it. Yeah.
And those are really cheap. Those are really cheap.
Right, for
Show
sure.
them again. Look at that. Look at that.
There we
that's
go.
Awesome.
So that's it. It was just completely mangled here. It actually comes apart a bit. So that's obviously the frame, you know, of what my road book holder, and then there's the road book there.
Kilometer 18.
Yeah, well, no, it was a bit further. This is okay. So this was the top one. So it would have been at the end of this roll where we crashed. So that would have been the part of the road book we crashed
62.
on. So about 60 k's into the special, and so that was it there. You can see, look at all that marking. Good times. And so that was that. And then and he stopped, man. The guy in the car stopped, and the navigator stood out of the car, and he kind of goes like this, you know, like, hey, you're all good, man. And I'm on my knees looking at that bike, the photo you just saw. I'm okay. But I was like, and he was like, yeah, all good. And I was like, freaking no, man. You know, come back here, along with, you know, a few other words. And then the guy just got back in that car, and they just drove off. Didn't even help me drag the bike out the track, nothing. They just left me there. And so I dragged the bike out myself, and I stood it up. And I just couldn't believe it, man. You know, it was 10 years for me to get to the start of that race, and it was on it would have been day 12 or 13 if you're counting the rest day. Yeah. And I'm basically out of this race. At that point, I had 660 kilometers to still race that day. So it was like it was just done, man. And
tell us what went through your head. Tell us was like when you looked at that bike. What did you think? Was you? Because for sure you didn't think. Well, you probably thought it was over for about a few minutes.
No, I was. Yeah. I honestly thought it was over. I thought, okay, we're done. Yeah. Because when the bike's that destroyed, you know what I mean. It's just mangled. The whole frame was bent. The subframe was bent. The seat was torn out. The air filter was torn. The bars couldn't even turn because of all the whole tower had broken. Both the carbon fiber parts had broken, bent back. It was just completely done. And I've got to tell you, the first thing that came to mind was relief, because now it's over. Because now it's over. And so physically, you must remember by that point, I was completely broken, completely broken. you know, I'd slept so little. I had this torn ligaments in my knee. My lips were split. I'm sunburnt. My hands are blistered. You know, wherever your guards are touching your body, you know, like your chest protector and your knee guards, and everything's just chafed and sore. And you know, we had rain for like 7 days. And so everything's just wet and it stinks, and you're just like,
but
you're just
really
so
great.
Destroyed. It's fantastic. We
really
can recommend
it
to everyone. What a lovely holiday.
Try it. You should definitely try it, everybody. Dakar.
So relaxing. And so it was one of those that was like, it was relief was the first thing, relief. And then it's kind of like it sinks in, and now you're thinking, and now we're going back home without finishing, and now all of this sort of stuff, and it was just one of those where it was like, you know, I talk to myself a lot when I ride, and it was one of those where it's like, Joey, this ain't good enough, bud. You're not gonna finish next to a broken bike in the desert. You know, you're only going to be time barred at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, and even though it's like 10 in the morning now, you know, you still got plenty time ahead of you, buddy. And so, you know, I still had what's that, another 18 hours until I'm time barred, and it's 660 kilometers. I know I can't do that, but I'm like, I'm going to keep going for those next 18 hours. And it's like, wherever we are 18 hours from now, that's where we're out the race, and we're not going to quit before then. You're going to push that bike until you're out. And so that's what I decided I was going to do. And I started stripping that bike, and I stripped the whole exhaust off the bike. I had to strip the ICOs and stuff off the navigation tower just to get the bars to turn a bit, you know, those bottom ones, that spare one and things. I disconnected the petrol tanks that were damaged, and I just had the one tank, and I only had about 3 liters or so left in that tank. So I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I can only go as far as that's going to take me, and I've got, according to the road book, I had 65 kilometers until I would hit any kind of civilization. So I don't even have enough fuel to get there, even if I can get the bike working. But I got the bike working, and I just started riding it, you know, and the whole frame's bent, and the bars are bent. The bars were completely bent, and the wheel was pointing another way, and, you know, all sorts of stuff, because the triple clamps were actually bent as well. And I just kind of zigzagged through the bush, knowing I'm out of this race. And knowing it's the end, but I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to keep going until I run out of fuel, and then I eventually get time barred. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then the most incredible thing happened, and I found another bike in the desert where the guy had crashed. He'd broken his arms, which I discovered later.
I think I asked you this before, but it was one of those red bikes, yeah? It was there was 2 bikes there, funny enough. One was the red bike. There was 2 guys that, I think what had happened, I don't think they crashed in the same place. They might have, but there was 2 bikes there, and I saw the red bike in the distance, but I looked at it, saw it was red, and I assumed it was a Honda, but it was actually also a rally replica, KTM. It was a KTM, and I remember it must have been a front runner on one of, I can't remember what it was, but there were a big team there that year, and I passed that bike. I remember passing it and thinking, man, somebody's out. There was a huge kicker right there. And,
exactly. And I think they both crashed on the same kicker, because what it was...
It wasn't marked. It was a huge step.
Massive.
I remember my back end went, bah, like that.
And it was in one of the ruts. In one of the ruts, which was with fesh covered over it, there was like a step. So it was like hitting a curb, pavement
in the sand.
curb.
Your wheels are all sinking in the sand, and then all of a sudden there was it was almost like a metal corner, square like that.
Yep.
And your wheel is down here, and you just the front wheel takes it, and the back just goes bam. Like
Correct. And so I bet you both those guys crashed there, because the red bike, because I didn't realize at the time, I thought it was a Honda when I was there, and they asked me later, I was like, there was another Honda there, and they were like, no, it was a KTM. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it was. And when I watched the video of my GoPro footage, I was like, no ways, it was another. But at the time, I didn't even look at that bike, or I didn't even think of it, but I did notice that the front suspension on that bike was broken. And so he probably hit it and broke the front on that bike, and the other guy crashed, which was the bike. It was Rider 101, if I remember, and his bike was there as well. And there was 3 Argentinian guys, in the middle of nowhere on old dirt bikes spectating the race. There wasn't like a lot of spectators there. They were on like these old dirt bikes with like old kits, and like those kind of guys, salt of the earth guys, man. And they were there, and they told me that this guy broke in his arm, because they kind of broke in English and stuff, and so we managed to like communicate a little bit, and they helped me strip that bike, and we stripped the whole exhaust off that bike. We siphoned all the petrol out of that bike. Awesome. I'd lost the foot peg. The foot peg had broken off on the frame, and so we stripped that whole piece of frame. We put it onto my bike.
And that's not easy to get off because the swing arm pivot goes through it, right?
Man, it was this is actually quite a funny one as well, because that's a size 17 that goes through that, and you're right.
And let me guess, they just had one.
Bro, I did not have anything that could handle a 17. I'm carrying all this like Motion Pro titanium stuff, but I'm like, I got like a sweet kit. I'm pretty prepared. I don't have a 17. You don't think you're going to have to do a 17 on the bike. And I even had the one for the back wheel, but it was a small mini one, so it was too big. And these guys came over, and they had a flippin' massive shifting spanner. I mean, it must have been like this big, and it was rusted as hell, and it was like cable tied on the front of his bike. And he comes over with a shifting spanner like this, and we managed to use that, and we got that 17 off so we could change it. Wow. And I got a foot peg, I got an exhaust, I got some petrol. I still had no navigation, but I managed to get one of the ICOs working so I could see my distance. So I knew how far I'd gone, which made a massive difference. I didn't have a cap heading though, but and then I rode on, and and I mean, a long story short, I rode on the rest of that day without seeing another bike or another quad, and just a couple of cars and a couple of trucks. And I eventually finished that stage at 2:15 the next morning, and then I slept for an hour.
And last.
Fun. You don't always have to bring that up, Lyndon. You don't always have to. It's not about positions.
I'm just trying to position the podcast title, a last place as a finish. So this day,
gotcha.
Good
Last.
job.
Again. And so that's my posse.
But what a story, man. I mean, the determination to get through that is just... but it's amazing when you put your mind to something. Anybody that's listening, like when you set your mind to something and you tell yourself you're going to do it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to the finish, you'll do it. If you tell yourself negatively, I'm done, you're done.
Yeah. Can I tell you, man, that self-talk, that you have in your own head, and often when you're riding, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of guys like me where you'll talk out loud. I know you do it, and it's like where you'll even talk to yourself like you're actually talking. You say, "Come on, man, come on, bro, what you got, man? Are you gonna do this?" Or that kind of stuff. And if you have that positive self-talk, you can get through way more stuff. If you start with that negative self-talk where you're like, that negative self-talk creeps in, man. I had it early on in Dakar where I was like, you don't belong here, man. You're not strong enough. Your legs are dodgy. You shouldn't be here. You're not a good enough rider. You're not. You're just like Joe, man. You're not going to make it. Rather just quit now and don't get hurt. And it's crazy, man.
But your legs are dodgy, so.
They are. Yeah. There's a lot of dodginess about me as well, which isn't even part of an accident. But
it's a good job you know me well. It's a good job you know me well. But man, incredible story. And you went on to finish Dakar.
Yeah. So I ended up with an hour's sleep that night, and then I rode, I think it was 750 the last day, and I rode that 750 and finished that race. And for me, that was huge, man. That was it was just a massive thing for me as an individual, for my life, it was like the end of a 10-year journey from being paralyzed. I still deal with a lot of problems with the paralysis, still now. I can't run, I can't jump, I still have to use catheters every day, which was something I had to do all the way through Dakar. It was so a lot of different challenges that I deal with, but to be able to have done that race and overcome that hurdle was just it was huge for me, man. It just was like, yeah, man, we freaking did it, so it was it's made a massive difference, personally,
and hopefully people listening, it'll make a difference as well, because I know there's people out there without those challenges you had that still talk themselves down. Totally, people can do this if they put their mind to it, and it literally is a positive mindset, setting out in the right direction, telling yourself you can do it all the time. The amount of people I get messages all the time. I could never afford to do Dakar. Immediately, you're talking the wrong way.
Yeah.
One day, I'm going to have enough money to do Dakar. And you just tell yourself, and you start to save the money, and you start to get it together. Like, if you tell yourself you will never afford to do it, you will never afford to do it. Like, you got to think positively about everything, and you're a great example of getting through that. You've done everything. You raised the money for it. You got out there. You did it through all the challenges, even in the race, and finished. And massive credit to you for that. That's
cheers,
awesome,
buddy. I appreciate it, man.
You know, I was at that race, and I do finish that race, but you deserve the finish better than I did. I mean, you went through hell.
The thing is, anybody who crosses that finish line, you know, like, obviously my story is a little more public now. You know, a lot more guys know about it with the book and that kind of stuff. But you can be sure there was lots of guys that finished that race, and lots of guys that finish other races that have overcome massive hurdles to get there. You know, and so it's like, mine's a bit more public, but you can be sure that there's a lot of guys that have dealt with many things, no doubt things worse than mine even, you know.
And one that, you know, springs to my mind, we'll just talk about it now. We're jumping forward to Africa Eco Race, and we're going to come back to why we did Africa Eco Race. But, you know, the guy that's paralysed that's riding the bike at a rally. Nicola
Duto. What a guy, man.
Absolute, what an inspiration. This guy, if you haven't seen it, go look him up on social media. This guy rides a 450 EXC with a special frame and a seat and everything, and he's paralysed, Jeff, from same chest down. He's
round about there. I think he's a little lower. You'd have to check, but he's paralysed, but he's complete. He's complete. So
it's never gonna recover, and he still rides a bike, and he has 2 ghost riders that ride with him. So literally, if he falls down this guy, he stops. Boom. That's it.
100%.
And then he has to unstrap himself and whatever, or his ghost riders come and lift him up. But he does it, and he finishes races. This guy's also like a massive inspiration, eh? It just shows that mindset. He told himself, I love riding motorcycles, I had an injury, and I'm going to do it again. And he's doing it. It's incredible.
And with him, you know, I mean, you look at his setup. I mean, we had a situation where we came across him in the desert at the Africa Eco Race, and it was like dunettes, so it was lots of these little dunes, which, can I tell you, was so difficult to ride, because you'll often drop the bike and have to pick it up. Now, he cannot afford to drop it. If he drops it, he literally lies there, and that's why he needs his buddies. They come there and they pick him up. Now, you know how heavy it is to pick up a bike in the sand. Now, imagine picking up a bike with the rider on it, because that's what you have to do. And so they pick this guy up, and then he carries on. And we came across him in this dunette field. And firstly, to see him there, I was like, how the hell did you get here? You know what I mean? Without putting your feet down, because you're often dabbing and holding the bike up and stuff, and he just has to ride it like a trials rider almost, but seated. And he was there, and he'd run out of fuel, because obviously, like you say, he's using a 450 enduro bike with some extra tanks on and stuff, but he was out of fuel, and he was just sitting there on his bike, his buddy standing next to him, holding him, sitting on this bike in the middle of the desert. And the other ghost rider, they'd sent him to go and get fuel, but they're just standing here in the hot sun in North Africa in the desert with this guy. It was crazy. And so myself and Greg, you know, we gave him fuel and everything. We got him going again, and it was like it was an honor to give a guy like that fuel. I mean, it was like, man, I'd give him fuel. I'd give him a bike, man. The guy's just a machine. Awesome. And it was actually fortunate we did, because at the end of the stage, we met the other ghost rider, and he was seated there at the end of the stage, and the marshals wouldn't let him go backwards on the stage to bring the fuel. So he'd got the fuel at the end of the stage, but he can't re-enter the stage to bring the fuel, which was obviously was the right thing, but it was crazy at the same time. So we managed to help him finish that stage, which was good to be a part of his story a little bit, you know. Yeah,
awesome. So on that subject, because we're talking about Africa Eco Race 2020 now, we'll just rewind a little bit. And so after Dakar 17, I was traveling around the world on my bike, and eventually get to South Africa, hang out with Joey and family. First time I've met your family. We're going to talk about those in a bit too. But while I was there, I kind of planted a seed, that I would love to take a team of people to the Africa Eco Race, and it would have to be people from different countries and people that I've met that are really into rally, that like get it, you know. I want this group of friends to be part of that rally, and I'd love you to be part of it too. And what did you think?
Oh man, you know, I remember you kind of threw this idea around and stuff, and I was like, it's one of those things that you hear and you go like, oh man, that would just be incredible, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, I'd kind of poured my life into this Dakar goal, I'd achieved this Dakar goal, and it was one of those things that was like, you know, the family has to sacrifice a lot to do a goal like that, you know, they have to be all on board and that kind of stuff. And obviously the way it ended with torn ligaments, but finishing and all that sort of stuff was incredible. And now at the same time, now you're going to go back to the family and go like, hey, there's another race I want to do, you know what I mean? Which is like crazy. And obviously it's the money and it's all that sort of stuff. But you know, you spoke about it, and Meredith, my wife, she was just like, you know, you need to go do this, you know, and she came on board, you know, really quick with it. She was like, look, it's an opportunity, and you know, just go, and which was a big thing for her, because she's been through a lot. You know, anyone who knows my story.
I must have made a positive impression on Meredith when I was there, because otherwise I don't think she'd have been so keen. She must know that like I was going to look after you or something.
I think you're kind of stretching the truth a bit there, Lyndon. That she was like, if you go, will Lyndon leave? I think was where what it came down to.
If you say yes, will I leave the house? People, guys, everybody watching, everybody listening, watching, like I literally way overstayed my welcome at Joey Evans' house.
Not at all, man.
No,
not at all.
Man. I was I was there and gone and there and gone. I was like a boomerang, man. I was just like gone back, gone. I even stayed there when you weren't there. Like your kids looked after me.
You what?
Like, it was.
I never heard that.
You did what? No, it was great. Like, you know, one of your daughters gave up a bedroom for me to stay there. I mean, we went and did all sorts of stuff. It was so much fun.
I got to tell you, but you brought such an awesome spirit into our home. You know what I mean? Just you were super positive, and it was like we honestly loved having you, man. And I know that there's people around the world that'll say the same. You know, it was really cool, and it was cool to like be part of your adventure, you know, having seen a lot of your races to places, stuff and things. And it was like, you know, I'm sure you remember we'd sit on the patio at the table each morning, both with our laptops doing our work, and we'd just chat about races and places and oh, there we go, just see I worked that in there. But all these kind of, you know, the places you'd been and the things you'd done, and I'd tell you some of the stuff that I'd done, and those are some of the best days, man.
No, it was great. And you know, we'll just finish the Africa race thing, but I want to come on to your family. But first we'll just finish the Africa race thing. So Joey's there, I finish races to places, so I ride all the way back up through Africa, and I get back to the UK, and I've been going through this like, hey, let's do this thing, you know, like what do you think about Africa race? And then I get home and it's like, okay, I'm done traveling, all systems go, this big project's going, and we get this huge team together and we just go and do Africa race. And I remember, like, you know, I said, don't worry guys, I'll get everything ready, all the bikes and everything, you just fly in and we go racing, you know. And we're gonna come on to a little bit more. There's a really good question from one of my followers on Patreon down below, which I think is a really good thing I need to answer, because a lot of people don't know, but we'll come on to that. It's all about Africa race when we get onto the questions at the end. But did this project, we got 5 brand new factory rally bikes, we did it proper, we got all the spare parts, the service vehicles, and the team together. Most important, the team, not just the riders, but the crew and the service crew and the mechanics and everything. And my dad was there with us, and we went as a team, 13 people with the media crew and everything. It was 13 people I think in total. I can't remember exactly, something like that. And we went and did the Africa race. We met in France. Literally, we like rocked up in France, and you hadn't even tried your pants or your jacket on. I remember, like, it was like, here, there's yours. It's like, wow, it doesn't fit. Swap with him, you know.
Totally.
Mike Johnson wanted some 32 pants, but we got him 34s. I think he just wanted to make it look like he was slimmer. But no, it was fun. We went there. We did scrutineering, we went and did the race, and it was a textbook race. really. Like, it was awesome until the second to last day again. When somebody decided to have an argument with a camel, Joey.
Oh man, you know, you couldn't even make that one up, you know. But
I thought it was done. I thought, I mean,
it was.
You'd finished the penultimate stage. You'd finished the 11th stage of Africa Eco Race.
Correct. We'd finished the stage. We high-fived each other. You know, me and Greg, as you know, people who watch it will know we rode it all together.
You rode together. You're good friends.
And me and Greg were like, and it was like, I mean, there was, for me and Greg, it was an incredible experience. You know, there was so much about that race that was just. It was awesome for the two of us. We had the one night. I got to quickly throw this in here. We had the one night in Mauritania where we were out at night on our own, and we got lost in the darkness. And it's like we couldn't find the tracks. It was like, because when you can't see, the navigation is like 10 times harder. You can't say, oh, there's that road over there, or oh, there's that mountain they're talking about in the road book, because you can see nothing. And you'd stop your bike, and you know, about 5 seconds later, the light just goes zoop off. And it's pitch black. Like, Greg was literally like 3 meters to my left. I can't see him. He can't see me as soon as that light goes off. And the stars were just incredible. And we're in the middle of the desert. And in Mauritania, it was like such a wow experience. But anyway, we got through the race and we raced together, and we had all sorts of fun times and all sorts of adventures of giving guys fuel and coming across guys that were like seriously injured, and you know, helping them, and you know, we did, when you're at the back of the race, you come across a lot of this kind of stuff, and it was just incredible. And we finished that last stage on the second last day, and we high-fived each other, done with the racing stage. We just got the liaison now to the bivouac, and then the next day you've got that 30-kilometer down the beach. So we're done, you know, the race is over. I mean, you can walk your bike the last day if you have to. And so we're high-fiving, and we're like, yeah, you know, Africa Eco in the bag, done and dusted, good times. And we get on this liaison and we start riding.
Let's just explain to people, the Africa Eco Race is like the traditional Dakar. It's like the old Dakar, which finishes in Dakar, Senegal. So just to reach Senegal down that beach is like an incredible feeling. I mean, I cried. It was awesome. Like, it was just sick. Yeah, like, it was really good.
And you go around Sorry.
Here we are.
I was going to say,
here we are the day before. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, and so we the day before we were in South Mauritania, and now all we've got is the liaison, you know, to the bivouac. But it's a couple 100 kilometers or whatever. I can't remember when it was.
It's actually the longest liaison on Africa Eco Race, because it's the only one, apart from the one at the start, because you have to get into Senegal. That was what the issue was.
Crossing the border and stuff.
Senegal,
yeah. And so we were still on the Mauritanian side, and we stopped at a little, like, I don't know what you guys call. We call it like a spazza shop, you know, kind of thing. And we bought a Coke and like a Mars bar that they had there, and I bought a Coke and a Mars bar. There was these two British riders, and I bought a Coke and a Mars bar for them, and they stopped, and I gave it to them, and me and Greg and these two guys, we sat there, and we had these Mars bars and Cokes, and it was like, oh good, hey, finish the race, hey, we awesome. And we got back on the road again. We're on a tar road, just heading along through the desert, you know, and it's like nothing as far as you can see, and a little tree here and a little bush here and that kind of stuff. And we're going along, and the two British guys were like in front of us, and then me and Greg had like kind of come past them, and we were kind of going like this, and so we're just like, hey, how's it guys, kind of thing. And we just like, you know, you're like sitting there with one hand on the handlebars, like a liaison, like mom, you know, just going along. And there's these trees and bushes on the left, and suddenly this camel just steps out right out of this stuff. And we hadn't even seen any other camels in the area or anything like that. And he just steps out, and I just see this camel. One would hope so. However, the story doesn't play out that way. And it was.
This is like, Joey, everyone. Why would it be straightforward? I mean, if you went around the camel and got to the end, it would be boring, right?
Completely boring. There's no story in that. And it was honestly like someone had swung a farm gate across the road. You know what I mean? You just stood out, and camels are huge, you know. And I remember just seeing this camel, and I remember seeing the camel. That's the last thing I remember. And Greg was behind me, and Greg said, what I did is I braked, and I kind of just turned a little bit. It was just was right on it, and I just connected with this camel. And I had a big flinger, you know, we were going over 100 kilometers an hour. And so it was down the tar, into the sand, and I was concussed in the sand, you know, so just out cold. Greg, he skied because he was behind me, so he skied, but he couldn't get around the camel either, and he hit the same camel and he crashed, you know, with the same camel. And then one of the British guys to my right, he kind of clipped his feet, kind of thing, but he stayed on. And so in essence, it was like three of us hit the same camel. It was just you can't even make that up, man. It was just crazy. But I'd cut open my forehead pretty badly. You know, I was wearing some Oakley like cycling glasses under my goggles, prescription ones, and so they'd have gone up into my forehead and kind of embedded in my forehead and stuff, and so I just had blood pouring out this helmet. I'm unconscious. Greg comes up to me. I got a helmet full of blood. The guy's unconscious. He thought I was dead. You know, the other guys helped out, which was super cool. And it was like, then they called it in. The chopper came. The chopper picked me up. But they had to get me now into Senegal. And so now it got pretty hectic. So I don't know all the details because I was obviously on a lot of medication and stuff. But it was hours. I was in the helicopter quite briefly, and then they dropped me off at a land ambulance. And then I remember being in this land ambulance, and I remember this thing going on some kind of 4x4 track, because I remember the drip bag was hanging up here, and I remember it hitting the ceiling and the sides as we were going through, and they were worried I had internal bleeding because I had a lot of pain in my stomach, and I damaged my shoulder and my wrist, and so they got me to this hospital in probably close to midnight in Senegal.
And I was still up. I was at the bivouac and I was still up, and I was trying to find out where you'd gone and what had happened. And,
but you guys had your own craziness. That was
we had our own stuff going on.
That was all the craziness with the other rider and the tire problem and all sorts of. So you guys had like your own thing you were dealing with that night, and I was in this hospital, and so it was so good though, because the organisers of the Africa Eco, they had the one doctor. And he was from Benin, if I'm not mistaken, and he was the paramedic who was with me, and he stayed with me the whole time, and he could speak English, like pretty good. You know, it wasn't perfect, but he could speak pretty good English. But he was the only guy who could speak English. Everyone in the hospital could only speak French, so it was like, I'm in a government hospital, which is like super shady, man. I mean, the whole ceilings are collapsing and the paint's coming off the walls, and it's like, and I'm in this hospital, and he actually ended up stitching up my head, the paramedic, in the passageway of the hospital there. We had to go for a CAT scan in this old machine that looked like it was from Noah's Ark, and then they cleared me for internal bleeding, and eventually they released me from the hospital.
Just before you go on to tell the story, I'll jump to the bivouac and say what was going on there.
Yeah, because there's the other side.
In the bivouac, we're obviously worried about Joey, and I'm talking to Meredith, Joey's wife, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, I'm trying to find out. And I'd been over to the medics so many times, and of course we had all the crap going on with us as well. And then on the back of this truck, Joey's bike arrives in the bivouac, like, I can't remember what time, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever. And of course we're trying to get ready for the race the next day, and his bike arrives and it's pretty trashed. I mean, you've shown us a trashed piece of bike already, but maybe you have another one to show us from the Africa race bike. So
here's the pipe here, you know, which was from the Camel attack.
So it slid down the road pretty good, the biker, and so the bike was trashed. I mean, the tank was damaged, and it's pretty rough. And the guys dragged it. It's been on the back of a trailer on a dusty old road for the whole way back, so it's covered in dust. And the guys are just like, shall we put it in the van then, and you know, we all get to bed, like, you know, because, you know, it's out of the race, you know. And I'm just like, secretly in my mind I was like, this is Joey Evans, man. Like, I can't. I'll never forgive myself if he gets back here and his bike's not ready. Like, no, rebuild his bike. Like, but he's gone to Senegal. Like, I'm like, let's rebuild it. Let's get it ready. And everyone was just like a bit. Well, it seems a bit strange because, like, he's out of the race. So, like, you know, okay, let's do it. You know. So the guys stay up. new exhaust, new tank, like whatever they needed to do, put all new stuff on it. And I remember like the bash plate, man, it was completely like worn through, like it's crazy.
Yeah, just to drag down that road. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember going to bed eventually, probably like 2 a.m. and the guys were rebuilding your bike. I remember that. And I eventually went to bed because there's nothing more I could do. They said you were stable and you were in the hospital, and really there's nothing else I could do. And all this time you're in the hospital, and what's going on in your head?
Yeah. So I'm trying to like get messages out because I know you guys don't know what's happening. I know Meredith doesn't know what's happening, and I managed to get a phone from someone to send a WhatsApp, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to WhatsApp Meredith, but obviously it's all in French, and so it's all on auto text. What do you call it? Spell check or whatever for French.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so as I'm typing, it's changing all the words, and I'm like doped up with meds, and I'm trying to like, and it was just like it was so frustrating. It was the nurse who had helped me there with a phone, but it was like it was crazy. But long story short, eventually they released me at 5 a.m. They've checked for the internal bleeding, and they reckon no, it's good. They've x-rayed, there's no, like, they can't see any fluid in my internal cavity and stuff, and so they're saying no, you can go. So I get back, so they release me, and we drive back to the bivouac, and we pull into the bivouac just at about 6 o'clock. Yeah, go for it.
And at this point, we're already up and kind of ready to go, yeah?
Yeah. You guys are about ready to pull out, yeah.
Yeah, we're about ready to go. Like, from memory, your bike was already loaded in the van.
Yeah, I think. No. What had happened at this point is, if you remember, one of the other riders had a problem with his bike.
That's right. And he was going to use your bike.
That's it. So he had asked if he could use the bike.
Right. And what I said is, yes, I'd already said, yes, you can use the bike as long as Joey doesn't make his start time. Because I was like, I know Joey Evans, like, if there's any possibility that he can get to the start of the last stage, whether he's smashed up, broken bones, whatever, he's going to strap his ass together, he's going to ride down the beach. I know Joey Evans, like, this is Joey Evans, I've read his book, I know this guy. So I said to them, okay, you can take it, as long as Joey doesn't come back. And of course the time goes by, you wouldn't believe it, guys.
It was like seconds.
The ambulance pulls in with like literally 10 minutes to go to departure from bivouac. Like,
I think it might have even been less than that, because when I got out the ambulance,
it was crazy.
I think Matt was even on his bike, and he got off his bike to come to me. So it was like right as you guys were leaving.
Over.
Yeah.
Exactly. We needed to go, and at that point, Joey climbs out of the back of an ambulance.
Falls out the back of an ambulance.
And I'm like. And it's rough, really rough. I remember it. And I'm like, man, and like, how are you? And he just looks at me, and it's just like, we're going to Dakar, bro. I'm like, what? I'm like, I just committed your bike to these guys. I didn't tell you that, but I was just like, went over. I was like, deal's off, guys. Deal's off. The machine is back. It's got his positive game on, and we're going to Dakar. And man, that was hectic because like you weren't even in any state to ride the bike. And I remember, we got to the start on the beach, and my dad was patching you up with plastic so you could put your helmet on.
But I had all stitches in my head, and so I couldn't get the helmet on. And your dad literally took a green plastic bag and he wrapped it around my head.
It was so cling wrap.
Helmet.
It was cling wrap.
He popped it on.
He cling wrapped your head. He cling wrapped your head.
And we got the helmet on, and I couldn't get a glove on. My hands were swollen.
I'm gonna find a picture of that.
Yeah, there we go.
109 cling wrap picture. Okay. And you got on your bike, guy. We'd already gone. Like the bikes had gone. I thought, where the heck's Joey? Like Joey's not made it. Like, so you started with the side by sides. They let you go, yeah?
Yeah, they started me. And it was crazy because I didn't have the road book for the day, and it's only 30 k's along the beach. But you go along the beach, you cut off the beach, you go around
houses and stuff.
Houses, and then back on, and then you finish on the beach. So it's straightforward, but it's not straightforward. And so I started with the side by sides. They say go, and I'm like, okay, I'm just chilling, man. I'm not gonna race down the beach with side by side. So I kind of
You were just like, I got till 4 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Exactly, man. There's no rush, yeah. And so they all go, and so I'm riding along, and I'm thinking I'm just going to follow them. I'm going to stay fast enough that I can keep a guy, 10, 20 meters ahead of me, and I know where I'm going, and I'm just going to follow him to the finish. And this guy at the back, he just drops back further and further and further and further. So now I'm following the last guy, and the other guys are gone. And then he stops. And so this last side by side like breaks down or whatever. And so now I go past him, and now I don't know where I'm going. And so now I'm going along the beach, and I see some people standing there, and it looks like, do they carry straight? Do they cut off? And so I'm going like this. Is it left? Is it straight? Kind of thing. And the people are like...
It's not easy. I remember that.
They're just waving
at them. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm looking for directions, and I'm trying to ride with one hand because I can't hold the bar with my left hand because I'd broken my wrist. And eventually I just kept going, and I kind of winged my way around, and I got to that finish line, and I just stalled it on the finish line. I can't hold in the clutch, and
I remember
I'm in so much pain.
There's some good photos of that because you rocked up, we were already there.
Yes, correct.
Rocked up, and you were in tears, man. I remember.
Man, I was flipping, crying my eyes out inside that helmet, and that's why I kept it on for a while. And it was just I was in so much pain. I hadn't slept as well. Now you must remember I'd been awake since the previous morning because that whole night in the hospital I hadn't had a chance to sleep, and so I was on. I'd been awake for well over 24 hours by this point, and probably 30 plus hours I'd been awake at this point. And so I've got I'd torn tendons in my right shoulder, I'd broken my left wrist, and I had all my head cut up and a concussion, and I'm pretty destroyed. On the back of also a race like that, it's day 12 or whatever, so I've been racing. So I was physically destroyed as well. And man, I was just, I was crying, I was a mess, and I was just like, but I'd finished, and that was super cool.
So to summarise then, break your back, come back from paralysis, start racing, crash into fences, destroy your bike, finish in the early hours of the morning, still want to go to Dakar, goes to Dakar, has a rough time, gets his bike run over, still finishes the day, still finishes Dakar, thinks it's all over. Lyndon comes along, another race, goes to Africa race, thinks it's all over, everything's good, hits a camel, ends up in hospital, has to race down the beach, dead last again, with broken parts. But dude, you finished everything, and big credit to you because. My God, what a story. And,
thanks,
I'll say it again, read his book. Anybody listening, read it because it's incredible. We've talked so much about bikes and racing and everything. But when I stayed with you, so I've come back to this, when I stayed with you in South Africa, your family really rubbed off on me. The way that they are, the way that you guys communicate and have a laugh together, and that's something really did rub off on me. I'll say it now, I never really wanted kids, and I found it, I always was like, I don't really want kids, this, that and the other, and I even told Camilla that, and I'd already started to think, well, maybe it'd be a good idea one day, maybe I'd regret it later in life, and it was when I stayed with you and your kids that I decided, no, I got to do this. So
that's cool.
Cheers, bro.
Thanks.
But I'm not there yet. I'm still practicing. But awesome family. Meredith, your wife, and you've got your kids. And I'm going to try and remember the names before you say anything because I'm terrible.
Here we go. Here's the test.
So there's Shauna's the youngest. Tyra's the next one. Jenna's the next one, and Kayla's the oldest.
Well played.
Girls are going to be well proud of me when they see this.
They will.
So, 4 girls. Let's just talk about that for a little bit because we've talked about perseverance and determination and everything to get to the end. But I'm sure there's listeners that have got kids of their own and 4 kids, maybe even more. But that's got to be pretty challenging as well, bringing up 4 girls and through teenage life and everything. How's that been?
Yeah, 100%, man. And I know like you're like super positive about my family, and I really appreciate it, and I'm sure they do too. But it is important to remember we're not like a perfect family, man. I mean, we make mistakes, things go wrong, we argue. It's like, you know what I mean? It's a normal family. But it is awesome, and it is one of those things that I love my family, man, and I love the opportunity I have to have my kids at home with me, and to be blessed with such a family. It's like it's incredible to have the girls in the family, and it's a super important part of my life, is to make sure that the family isn't neglected through all of the the racing and that kind of stuff, which brings into probably this question that would be the good one to lead into now, is the balance of family and adventure.
Maybe you can help me with some of that balance, dude.
Yeah, there we go. Camilla's actually sent me a few letters to ask for help, if I'm being honest, sure,
Dear Joey.
So Lyndon's a problem again, but but
that wouldn't surprise me, man. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
But if I look at, like, I know, and I think this will hit home for a lot of guys out there right now. I know that, like me, there's a lot of guys out there that look at someone like you, and what you've done, where you've gone around the world and you've raced around the world, and they're like, I could so do that. Like, I could do that. Yeah. That is what I want to do. That is exactly that gets my blood flowing. I'm like, that is what I want to do. But they're sitting at home with a family. They're sitting with a job. They're sitting with maybe employees that rely on them, and all this type of stuff. And so it really is a situation that they're like, yeah, but I can't do that. So it's one of those. There's nothing I can do. And that's not entirely true. And that's something that I realized. I mean, if you look at it, when I committed to race Dakar, I was paralyzed in a wheelchair. I was broke because I was self-employed, so I had zero income now. I was married with 4 kids, and I decided I was going to race Dakar. So I mean, if there's ever like a scenario, you don't have the money, you got a family, and you can't do it physically, but I did, and I raced it, and this is the key, in my opinion, how to match these two, is you have to look at who you are and what your life is. So if you look at you, Lyndon, at the time you rode around the world, you were single, you were a good bike mechanic, you had the mechanical skills, you had the physical skills, you'd raced, you could ride, so all of those things worked out perfect to do a round the world trip. You were the perfect guy to do it on a rally replica, and to go and do this, and that worked out great. Now for the other guys, a guy like me, for instance, I know that my kind of upper end limit is about 2 weeks away. You know what I mean? I can do it 2 weeks away, and I can do that maybe once a year, and that works out from a family point of view. So I can't do a round the world trip, but I can go and ride up to Angola, I can go ride through Namibia, I can do a 5-day, I can do a 10-day trip, I can race an Dakar Rally, I can go do a Mazuga Rally, and so you figure out what can work for you. I've got another good mate, Thomas Ike, and he went up through Africa with some mates, and they rode a long way, and then they flew back home, and then they worked for a couple of months, and then they went back to their bikes, and then they carried on. And there's other guys that'll do other types of trips and stuff. So you have to look at your unique situation and say, what can I do? What adventure can I do? What sort of stuff can I do? And there's plenty of opportunities if you view it like that. And that way, you keep an awesome family life, you balance your work life, and you balance this like thirst and hunger for adventure that a lot of us kind of guys have,
Yeah, of course, that's really good. Cool. And I still struggle with the balance, like I have Camilla and Aaliyah back home in Spain, and I struggle to. I've always been about me and my bikes and my projects and my work, and I'm struggling to get away from. Okay, that's always been the priority for me. Races to places, work, media, projects, Dakar, everything, and now I have a family, and that came all of a sudden. It wasn't like it came from years and years and years. It just came all of a sudden, and I know that she finds it hard, and I find it hard to find time for the family, and the balance is adjusting. It's slowly adjusting. I'm slowly trying to understand, and I'm enjoying time we have together, you know. I enjoy walking down to the beach and getting an ice cream and stuff like that. I enjoy the time we have together. So, and it teaches me as I get older as well, and that there's other things as well. So it's, for me, it's come at the right time. I did things a bit different to most people, a bit like upside down from you. You know, you had all your kids young on, and now they're grown up, and you're in a situation where you could go away again. You know, that's that type of thing. So yeah, that's super cool, man.
No, 100%. And I know that we spoke a lot about this when you were here and that kind of stuff, you know, this type of side of it, that it is about, you know, life is about balance. You know, we like to say, hey, bikes are everything, and we live to race and that kind of stuff. But it is a huge part of us. Now, you don't want to be the other guy who's like a super cool family man, and he's like really focused on his business, and he's got a good business. But he's like that. He's like that dog sitting in the backyard, and he's seeing that wolf on the mountain howling away at the moon, and he's like, I want to be that guy. And it's like, you know, so you can't be that guy, but you also can't be the guy that's off racing and living wild and stuff. And you've got your son or your daughter at home who's growing up without a dad, or is growing up with a pretty crappy life. You know, and so you want to, like, you have to, and it's not a case of either or. We often think it's an either or choice. It's a case of you can do both. You can be the guy.
It's like a lot of things in life,
races and stuff, but also a family. Yeah, correct.
It's a compromise. You know, it's always a compromise, and you know, I like doing a bit of everything, and it's just finding that compromise and the balance. So yeah, cool. So yeah, we just talked a little bit about your family and everything there, and just wanted to really bring up, if it's okay with you, what happened at the beginning of this year, because you know you've been through a lot in your life and been through some pretty tough times, but you know, I received a message before Christmas, actually.
19th of December.
19th of December, I received a message from Joey to say Jenna, his second eldest daughter, had been involved in a serious car accident and was fighting for her life in hospital. And man, it brought me to tears, and I was just like broken. I remember sending a video message to you all, because I was just like, what? Like, how can this happen to the Evans, you know? I don't want to dwell on it, but just quickly run through the story if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's pretty crazy.
So the short version is that on the 19th of December, she was just up the road in her own car, and what happened was there was a guy who was 83 years old, and he obviously had a heart attack or something like that, and he just swerved right across into oncoming traffic, and she had a head-on collision. And it was just a normal road, so it was like they were probably both doing about 60 kilometers an hour. But obviously the two coming head-on, that's the same as 120 into a concrete block. So it was a crazy accident, you know. And she broke her tibia fibula, is that right? And then her femur and her arm and her pelvis, and then it just kind of escalated because she had the bone marrow came out of her femur and into her bloodstream, and so she had what's called a fat embolism shower. So she had multiple strokes through her brain, and then her kidneys failed, her liver failed and died half of her liver, and then she had lung failure, and eventually her heart stopped. And she was resuscitated 3 times in the hospital that first night, and the doctors just said she's not going to make it. You know, this is it. It's you know, you need to say your goodbyes, kind of thing. That we're done here.
Wow.
And obviously that was just, man, that was by far, you know, with all the other stuff we've been through, that was by far the most difficult night of my life. You know, and she made it through the night, and we managed to organize an ECMO machine, which is like this machine that plugs into your vein in your neck. So they have a cardiothoracic surgeon has to do it, and it basically takes the part of your lungs, because her lungs are completely failed, that even on a ventilator, she was busy basically drowning. You know, her blood oxygen levels were continuing to drop. They went below 70 at one point. And so they take the blood out of your neck and they put it through this machine or actually they take it out of your leg, put the blood through the machine that oxygenates it, and then puts it back in your neck. And so it was like they didn't expect her to live, and she ended up in a coma for 3 weeks, and another 3 weeks in intensive care. And during all those 6 weeks, she was never stable. It was always just touch and go, touch and go. They couldn't tell us if she was going to live another night. So it was extremely difficult and stressful. And then after that, she was another 3 weeks in hospital, and eventually she came home, you know, and she's been out now for a few months, and she's all being well. She should make a full recovery, which has been
that's incredible.
Just crazy,
like,
man. Yeah.
And she's an Evans, eh? She was not giving up. I mean, I remember seeing some of the first videos of her, and she was so positive about everything. And she said, you know, it's just, I'm going to have some scars, and I'm going to this, and I'm going to that, but I don't care, I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to, you know, the video where she said, I'm going to do this, you know, and she was on a deathbed, eh? Like,
no, really,
she's like, don't worry, I'm going to get through this. Like, it was incredible. So I'm sure your, like, approach to everything definitely rubbed off on her, and helped her as well. So,
I hope so, you know.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's been so difficult. I mean, as you know, Meredith has supported me with, you know, through so many things, and obviously with Jenna, she's doing the same for her.
Hell, man.
No, she has. She really has, and she has ups and downs. I mean, it's difficult. It's not like she's just styling her way through life, just taking this on the chin. It's hard, man. But she does. She keeps going. She keeps going. And from my side, I hope Jenna can see my story, you know, about how bad it was. Like in the hospital, I didn't know it was going to end with me finishing Dakar and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I didn't know I'd walk again, but it was like, you just have to take it one day at a time. If all you can handle is one more day, you handle that one more day, and then one more day, and one more day. And those add up to months, and they add up to years, and they add up to a changed life if you just keep those little bits ahead of you.
Yeah, and it's amazing, eh? Things like this. Moments like this, moments like when you were paralysed, and you know why I did Races to Places in the first place is because I almost lost my life.
Yes,
you know?
of course,
and it's moments like that change your perspective on life completely, for the better, 100%. And it's crazy, and unfortunate. It sounds bad saying this, but unfortunately, not everyone gets those switches. You know, I flip that switch and that switch and that switch, and you're a changed person. Not everyone gets them. Some people have to change themselves, you know, and I'm sure that's pretty challenging. I mean, I was given the change, you know. I was like, okay, time's up, you know, something different. And
it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing for everyone. You know, some people might have a massive thing where it's like a physical thing, like what I had or what Janice had, or similar to what you had. You know, with the race that you ran and the heart attack and things. And it's and it's like, you know, it's like all of these type of stuff. It's some guys have that physically. Other guys might lose their business. Other guys might go through a divorce. Other guys could lose a child or a loved one. You know, but you sometimes when those things happen and your life is just destroyed, it gives you a chance to look at it and go like, cool, what are we actually doing here, man? What are my priorities? What am I putting my time into? What needs to change? And it gives you an opportunity to start a whole new life.
Yeah, and one thing I've also realised is like, and I've done it a lot more just lately as well, is like, I find it so rewarding to help other people. Like, even if it's rally training, or whether it's helping a guy in Zambia build a chicken farm, like literally, like, I really take great pleasure from helping other people. And I realise so many people have helped me through Races to Places, through my travels, through my racing, all the people, all the companies that have been involved in everything that I've done. Like, I want to give a little bit to other people as well, or a lot if I can, you know, like I want to give 100%. Now. And that's changed me. You know, I was a different person before, but now I've realised the benefits of different ways of being, your attitude, your ways of thinking, and it's all positive. I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, man. And
no one would believe it if you did.
Of us. But yeah, definitely learning a lot, you know, from life
100%.
And just cracking on with it. So
I think when you go through the bad things, you learn empathy. So you know what it's like to sit in hospital. You know what it's like to suffer. You know those kind of things. It's like if you've been poor, you understand what it's like to be poor and that kind of stuff. And it's like we said, there's many different sides of this, physical and all sorts of other stuff. But it's all part of firstly just growing up in general. You know, you do gain more empathy. But I think our stories, yours and mine, have a massive parallel in the area that both of us required so many people to help us to achieve what we did. You couldn't have done races to places without so much support, you know, so many people, companies, individuals, guys putting you up in their places around the world, people sending you spares when you need it and helping you get to places and all that sort of stuff. And same with me, you know, raising money for Dakar, you know, people who help build ramps in my house or my wheelchair to get in and out. You know, guys that have donated, guys that have the amount of support that I've had has been incredible, and that's what's made a difference in my life is what other people have done for me. And so for sure you want to give back, and you want to be that same person for someone else.
Awesome. Well, I hope it's been awesome chatting about all of this, and I hope people take something away from it, you know, and get out there and live their dreams, achieve what they want to achieve, or even have a go at it, you know. Not everyone's successful. You don't have to. It's all about the journey, you know. It's all about the trying. So,
and going back to the whole like theme of just finishing races and stuff, you know, it's a case of there's a lot of different parts of that. You know, obviously there's the mental side about like what does it take to stop you finishing, and I like to use the word a noble excuse. You know, when you're at a race, you're either going to come back with a finish, or you come back with a reason why you didn't finish. And that reason why you didn't finish, I like to see as a noble excuse. And so everybody has a level of what level is that noble excuse. So for some guy it might be like, hey man, I didn't have front brakes, so what could I do? I mean, obviously I had to stop, you know. Where another guy is like, well, you know, the bone was protruding, you know, through the skin, so I could only finish that stage, you know, or something like that, you know. And so you have to decide as an individual, what is your level? What do you consider a noble excuse, you know?
And that's also it brings me on to a really important point, because the reason that I ended up in hospital and almost lost my life was I didn't know where the line was. I knew things were going bad. I was running a half marathon. I knew things were going real bad that day. I didn't realise I had an infection. I didn't realise I was sick anyway, and I knew it was bad. But mentally, I told myself, "You can do this. You can do this." And I was ill, really ill, and I said, you can do it. And I didn't know the point that I needed to switch off. So it's very important to push through as much as possible, but you also need to know when to stop. And otherwise, literally, you can kill yourself. And I learned that. And then after this, I went on to do Mazuga Rally. And so 2 rallies that I didn't finish were Hellas Rally and Mazuga Rally in my whole career. Those were the 2. Hellas Rally, I had a really bad high side, dislocated my shoulder, did loads of tendon ligament damage, but it's still bad now. I had a scan recently and they said they need to realign my bicep and do this, and I've got a 60% torn tendon. Oh, it's a nightmare. So, but that I thought I could continue, and I rode to the end of the stage. When I got up the next morning, I destroyed my shoulder doing it. I was in so much pain, never been in as much pain. And I knew it was stupid to continue, so that's why I stopped. Doctor's advice as well.
And can I tell you, that's another thing, is like, you know, it's obviously I can't tell somebody when they should stop, but that person knows. But you have to decide before you race, what is that point? Because you know, and I know many guys will quit races for pretty ridiculous reasons, you know. I mean, you look at your Dakar 2013, that fork leg, that would have been,
fork was not attached to the wheel anymore. Like,
correct,
it was snapped.
Now for probably, and something like that is quite a highly technical type thing. You know, probably half the guys who race Dakar have never stripped a fork or knows what it looks like inside. And so you were in the top half where you knew mechanically what you could do, but that for probably 90% of guys would have been a perfectly good reason to come home. And that's the difference. It's a case of at what level is your level, you know, of what's gonna bring you home. And so figure that out before you go, because when you're there, the littlest thing is a good enough reason to go home. So you have to decide before you start the race, what's going to take me out.
And I'm thankful, I would get some serious stick if like a mechanical issue caused me to not finish a race, you know.
For sure, I'd be first in line to give you that.
Yeah, I know. And the other one, like, you know, I've had some failures as well. Dakar 13, Rally Mongolia, literally, and I held my hand up, like I forgot to tighten the bolts in my brake caliper. My brake caliper flicked up, bent all the bracket, damaged my wheel, disc, everything. I still got to the end of the stage. You know, you make a plan. And the only other race I didn't finish was Mizuga Rally, and I was seriously sick with sickness and diarrhea. And I still started the stage because I thought, I can get through this. I can take it easy and I can get through it. It was the point where I was sitting next to the bike thinking, I just want to die, that I knew it was over.
It's over.
And I have to get help. And that was the point that I got help. I just said, that's it, done.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
You see
hit the eject button.
But that is, and it's a hard thing to do for someone like you to do that. But it is. We both know many guys die in rallies. Many guys die in off-road races. They're lone rallies where you're more isolated and stuff. And so to do that is like. It comes back to that balance thing again, where you look at your family and stuff. If you're this guy who died on a race because you kept pushing and pushing and pushing, you've just screwed up that balance, something terrible, you know what I mean? And so it is about trying to find that balance, but you got to pick that level kind of before you start, you know, what's your level.
And the last thing you want to do, all the time I haven't finished, I've never looked back and said, man, I could have finished. It's been because I couldn't finish.
That was it,
You know, if someone said to me, all you had to do is lock wire your shoulder back together and you'd have got through the finish, I'd be like, what? Like, I'd be really bad, feel really bad.
Understand, yeah.
Awesome, dude. Right, look, we have talked for an hour and 40. Totally awesome talking to you.
Quick.
We have a few questions from Patreons and Instagram and Facebook. So we're going to go through those, and I think there's some pretty good ones. First one is from Elaine LaBelle. Many questions from Elaine, often. Really thanks for the nice words, Elaine. Really nice to see all of those. But you asked, Lyndon, tell us what it's like to put something like this together, and he's referring to the Dakar's Africa Eco race, that type of thing. The challenges, the ups and downs. Dude, who paid for all those 450 rally bikes and spares? Is it feasible to do it again? Okay, where to start? What it's like to put something together. I have said this to Joey, and I've said it to Camilla, and I've said it to my family as well. Like, the Africa Eco Race project with 5 bikes, a whole team, a media team, a daily release of media, and managing the whole thing and riding at the front end of the field as well. Just the preparation broke me. I was literally broken. I was in tears with my family. I was finished before we even got to the start line. So if anybody looks at it and thinks, yeah, that's a great idea, like, you better have the right people around you to do it, because it is a massive job. To give you an idea, the KTM Factory Rally team at Dakar had 5 bikes. They have 37 people. So the whole team is 37 people for 5 bikes. We had 13 people, including the riders, for 5 bikes. No big truck.
Remember, three of the guys were purely media for filming. They were nothing to do with mechanical.
What it's like to put something together, it's like this. It's completely crazy. And it's a hell of a lot of work, and especially with my OCD and my preparedness and having all the bikes like they were and perfect and everything. Absolutely couldn't have done it without you guys, the riders, because we're going to come on to this, because you said who paid for all those 450s, and we'll come on to the money side of it, but how it worked out. But without the riders being who they were and being understanding of what it costs and the time that's invested into it and everything, and also the people that joined the team, because the people that joined the team did it for nothing. They did it because they wanted to be part of the team, and the moment you put in wages into that and all the other, it's massive, So this was a team of mates with a really good team of mechanics and crew that wanted to be there to make it successful. The riders paid for themselves their own 1/5 of what it costs. Literally, the riders. So every rider paid a 1/5 of what it cost, and the social media element was paid for by the crowdfunder. So everything to do with the social media was paid for by the crowdfunder, and everything else came from the crowdfunding. So that's how it came about, and how it was made possible. So we bought 5 brand new bikes. I mean, anybody can go get a bank loan, well, as long as they've got the right credit, whatever it's called, credit history. You can go get a bank loan and you can roll some bikes, you know, and you can put this project together, and the riders each paid for the depreciation on the bikes and the damages and stuff like that, and their entry fees and insurances and navigation gear and everything that they needed to do the race. And the media project put everything else together to allow us to bring it to the public, and that's how it worked, you know. So in answer to your question, who bought all the bikes? Well, I did, and because I was passionate about putting this project together, and all the way along I told the guys, look, this is what it's going to be. There's your entry fee, there's a rental for a bike, you have to pay for the damage on the bike. You know, this is not a factory team. We try and make it as good as we can, but ultimately that's what it is, and that's how we did it. And thankfully we had an awesome team of great guys along. So
yeah, I must say that coming along as a rider, it was what a fantastic opportunity. You know what I mean? It was just incredible. The guys that you put together were just, you know, just some of the best guys you'll meet in your life, you know. I mean, apart from Matt, I mean, he's dodgy as hell. But all the other guys, you know, but no, it was really incredible. But we just had such a good time. But I can tell you now, when I met you down in Monaco, you know, at the start, you know, just before the race and stuff, I'd obviously only seen you in person last when you were with me down in South Africa. And I remember seeing you there, and you looked skinny, you looked gaunt, you were like, I was like, man, this guy's been through some hard stuff. And I remember you told me, you know, leading up in the months leading up, you're like, man, Joey, I shouldn't have taken this on. This is just bigger and worse, and you know, all this sort of stuff. But I must say, on a personal level, I'm just so stoked you did that, because the opportunity for me and Greg to ride through North Africa together was incredible. You know, Greg will tell you that those were some of the best days of both our lives. You know, doing those races, you know, riding through Western Sahara and Mauritania and stuff was just incredible. And meeting all the guys, we had a like. You know, there's teams and there's teams, you know, and to be on that team, you know, those guys in the pits each night were just incredible guys, just all incredible guys. And to hang out with you guys as riders was incredible. You know, I've certainly made friends for life, you know, there. And I mean, like, if someone says, like, do you know Lyndon? I'll be like, yeah, I know Lyndon, you know, he's a good guy and stuff. And if somebody, you know, says to me, hey man, do you know Matt?
Only good, is that all you say?
Well, only, but if someone says, do you know Matt? then what I'll say is, like, why do you ask?
It's a bit of a dodgy joke.
Yeah, I want to know why they're asking first before I commit to knowing him or not, you know?
Yeah. So, and let's face it, like, we should talk about this, because the people on the team, so the riders were, excluding Matt, the riders were all riders that I'd met and travelled while I travelled around the world on races to places, and they were all, you know, South African terms, Lekker Oaks. They were all guys that I wanted to be with. They were guys that I wanted to race with. They were guys that wanted to race, and they understand how to do it the right way. You know, there's only one way to do it, and that's the proper way, with the proper bikes, with all the right spares and parts and support team behind you to get to the finish if you do it as a team like this. And I had this idea to do this crazy project with the videos and everything. I knew it'd work because they're all cool dudes and everything. And then, like, literally, like, a couple of months before the race, Yuji, one of my best friends again from Japan, gets a brain aneurysm, and there was no way he could race. And then this dodgy guy called Matt comes along, recommended from somebody else, and drops into the team. And well, he was kind of the odd one out, but I tell you what, actually, he was the odd one out in a good way. He is just so funny, man. He was magic. We had a phone call, and I invited him to join the team and everything, and told him what it was going to cost, and you know, he wired the money straight away, and he said, I'm in, and don't worry, I'm all in, like, we're going to have a great time. And again, he's become a great friend, and we're going to race again for sure. I know we are. Well, sorry, we're going to ride again for sure.
There you go.
So is it feasible to do it again, Elaine asked. Yeah, of course it's feasible to do it again. Would I do it different? Yeah, I would. But I'll be honest, Elaine, like, and everybody listening, like, I don't want to do the same thing again. That's not what I'm about, you know. Like, I'm always done something different. I done Dakar 13 with a team. Did Dakar 17 solo and self-filmed it and released a movie. Dakar 18 because I knew I could do better, but wanted to do something different, so I did a daily video series. Then I thought about doing Africa Race, and I was like, but if I just go and do Africa Race Malimoto, it's the same as Dakar. So, in a video series, I'll do something different. Let's take a team. Let's do a team effort and film that. They get the team interaction, you know, the relationships between people in the team and different characters, and it worked perfectly. Like, so would it be feasible to do it again? Yes, but would I do the same again? No. Like, totally do something different if I did it again. And I've already got a few ideas in the pipeline, so we'll see what comes up in the coming years. So, Joey, question for you. What type of commitment was it to join the team after all you've been through? Well, I think you've probably answered it already.
Yeah, covered most of it. The thing was, it was the one thing that I didn't cover was, like, obviously there's a lot of guys that talk about, like, the Dakar, the real Dakar, you know, that kind of stuff. And obviously with Dakar going to South America, I'm super stoked I had the opportunity to race it in South America, because that was an awesome experience, especially from a fan point of view. I mean, the streets lined with literally thousands and thousands of people. Like, I'd never seen anything like it. You stop at a petrol station, you're flooded by people wanting autographs and photos, and it was like it was an out of world experience. But there was also a part of me that was like kind of upset in a way that I missed out on doing the old school Dakar where you race to Dakar. And so when the opportunity came up, I was like, yeah, I got to do this, man. I got to do this, because it's like then I get to do the Dakar, and I get to do the old Dakar in a way as well. And so to actually have the opportunity to race the Dakar was like, we got to do it. And Greg was the same. And Greg phoned me up and he's like, hey, Joey, are you going to do this? Because only if you do this, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay, are you going to do this? Okay, we're going to both do. Okay, let's do this. And so it was kind of one of those, and then we ended up doing it. So it was a super cool opportunity to be able to say I did both in a way, you know, if that makes sense. I mean, guys who know these races will understand what I'm saying. And it was just to be able to race both was fantastic.
And finish both.
There you go. Just.
I nearly said last again, but I won't bring that into it.
Every time. Why?
And would you do it again? Yes.
Would I do it again? I wouldn't, you know, to be honest. You know, for me, you know, go back to that balance of family and life and stuff. Also, it is a lot of money for me. You know, coming from South Africa, our currency isn't worth a lot and things. And so to do overseas racing is like horrendously expensive.
Let's tell people how much. I mean, I did... You know, I've done Dakars, you've done Dakars. What did you have to raise when you did your Dakar? Can you remember?
When I raced Dakar, I had to raise 1.1 million rand. Now, obviously, it changes with stuff. At the time, if I had to guess, I think it was about $80,000. Something like that.
So about £65,000, something like that. So,
yeah, something like that, you know. Okay. And that was without the bike. So that was... Then I
financed... a bike.
I bought a bike, but I financed the bike. And so then I did manage to keep my bike, because when I got back from Dakar, then I paid and managed to keep it, which was super cool. I didn't expect to be able to do that. But so that was at the time, and now with Africa Eco Race, I obviously didn't keep the bike or anything like that. I could have, you know, you gave me the option to buy the bike, but I just couldn't afford it. And also, it's like I'm not one of these guys that like believes you should have lots and lots of bikes. I'm like, if you're not riding it, you shouldn't have it, you know, kind of thing. So
what do you mean, Joey?
So you've heard me.
What are you talking about?
I tell you what, Camilla asked me to remind you of that. But
look, you collect helmets. I collect bikes. It's all good.
It's because most of those have been crashed. You can't wear them anymore. But it's one of those. So I simply couldn't afford the bike. But that cost me in rands about 800,000 rand to go and race Africa Eco. Which I paid from my own money, which was a mass. I mean, with that same kind of money, I could take my whole family around the world and stuff, you know. So it was
about 45. It was about £45,000, so probably about 60,000 US. And bear in mind as well, the way we did it, you probably wouldn't do it that cheap the same way. because we did it on the cheap. Like
correct,
we really did. We did it.
Well,
on the cheap,
we had all the support crew there, who weren't paid. I mean, all those guys were volunteers. They're all kicking out of their own pockets and stuff, and you know, and so that was one of the big reasons why I did it as well. I could never do it that cheap again, to have that kind of support. I could never do it with you, with those guys, with Greg. It was like everything was just like, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it's like I just jumped and said, let's just do this, man. And I'm glad I did. Awesome. I'm super stoked that I did do it.
And I'm glad we got all the media out of it, because that's just awesome.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it,
cool.
anyone, YouTube, Team Races to Places, Race to Dakar, Africa Eco Race 2020. It's pretty incredible. Everything in there you can think of. Yeah, it's an awesome video series. So for me, like, my first Dakar cost about, from memory, about £80,000 or something, including the bike. That was the full budget, and I paid for most of it myself. I crowdfunded some of it, but definitely not all of it. Well, not crowdfunded. I actually sold T-shirts and raised money through businesses, local businesses that helped, and international businesses even. And then 2017, I did Malimoto, which I actually thought was going to be cheaper, but actually I had to buy the video rights from ASO to be able to make the movie that we made, the Malimoto, the Forgotten Dakar story, also on YouTube. To be able to release that publicly with the footage from the stages and everything, I had to pay for the video rights and the media and everything from the race, which then basically all I saved to go Malimoto I had to spend on that, so it didn't cost any less. And then in 2018 I went Malimoto, and obviously took a media crew, which was a vehicle and a crew, media rights and everything, and that was over €100,000 so in total, which is why I had to raise so much money for it. And so Africa Race actually was cheap in comparison to those, partly because the organisation were very flexible with media, which helps a lot when you're doing that sort of thing. Of course, we still had to pay some stuff, but you know, it was not as bad as Dakar. So yeah, it's that gives people an idea of the range of what it costs. I mean, I know people that have done it absolutely on the cheap with an Dakar on the cheap, Malimoto with an enduro bike, all inclusive, €50,000. But man, you are pushing the boundaries to finish, because you're not on the right bike, you're not prepared properly, you don't probably have the experience and the riding under your belt, and beforehand, you know, it's like, it's really, I think to do it for that budget, you're risking not finishing, and a lot of people have shown that. I mean, we know at Africa Race, the amount of enduro bikes that we saw
ran out of fuel,
out of the race, ran out of fuel, engines broke, you know,
subframes broken because they're trying to put too much on a subframe of an enduro bike, and
so the rally bike costs a lot of money, but it's one of those things where you don't want to scrimp on this, man. If you're going to spend 50 to 100,000 euros doing the Dakar and doing it properly, you want to make sure you finish, you know. And that's a big thing I've been about all my life, is like, I'm an aerospace engineer, that's where it comes from, you know. If you're going to do something, you do it right. There's people's lives at risk. There's a pilot flying this fast jet, you know. It's got to be reliable. You can never fail, you know. And it's the same when I'm building my bikes. It's like, it's got to be right. So
yeah, just along with that bike thing, quick, if you don't mind me just popping in there. I remember coming up to Dakar, you know, I didn't have the money and stuff, and guys were like, no man, you can get an enduro bike, you could do it on an enduro bike, you know, get a 450 and put on the rally kits and the towers and that kind of stuff. And I raced most of those Amageza rallies with on a 450 and a 500 enduro bike, where I had a long range tank and I had the bolt-on road book and that kind of stuff, and for those it was fine, you know, it really was fine. But when you're going to do a race like Africa Eco, or you're going to do it like a Dakar, for instance, you are so heavily invested, like you say, with money already. 90% of it you're not going to change, and it's a false economy to think that doing it on an enduro kit bike is going to save you money. Because if you get an enduro kit bike, if you take the cost of that bike, you take the cost of the kit, when you get home from Dakar, what can you sell that for? You know, you will lose pretty much the whole value of the kit, and obviously the bike has now got like 9,000 kilometers on it, assuming you finish. The bike is pretty stuffed anyway. Now, if you get a rally bike, it costs a lot more, but the depreciation on a rally bike after one Dakar is very little. A guy will pick up a Dakar bike if it's done. It's done one Dakar. The guy's like, sweet, man. And so the amount you lose is pretty similar. So when you're doing a big race like that, it's a false economy to take an enduro bike.
I know the rally bikes are so strong. I bought a used rally bike for Africa race. You four guys got new ones.
Yeah.
I got a used one and serviced it, rebuilt it myself. It had done a Dakar, you know, and now it's done a Dakar and an Africa Eco race. About 4 or 5 weeks of rally training. It's got nearly 400 hours on it. It's done a lot, and it's solid. They are solid bikes. So yeah, definitely. Okay, let's move on. Next question. Jacob Naib, Joey. Remarkable person, talks about your challenges, which we've already talked about a lot, and he talks about some of his own challenges with arthritis, arthritic knees, wrist problems. You've got wrist problems, and kind of talks himself down and out of these challenges, but probably wants to do a rally. What sort of messages do you have for somebody like that maybe thinks they can't because of some issues they have, whether it's physical, mental, anything, you know, how to get to it?
For sure, you know, like there is challenges. Now, for anyone going there, there's challenges. But if you've got additional physical stuff, financial stuff, whatever it is, there's massive challenges. But you don't start off getting on the start line of the Dakar Rally. You start off way back, just going for a ride with your mates. Mm-hmm. So getting an enduro bike, going for a ride and hanging out, and then you start to realize what you can and can't do and what you need to work on. And then you start to go like, right, let's do a multiple day trip, or let's do a local race, and you do a local enduro race or a local, you know, off-road race type of thing. And then you say, well, we're going to go for a tour now, and we're going to now go down to Spain, or we're going to go to Morocco, or you know, and then we're going to do a local rally. You know, I know there's a few around Europe. I don't know them very well, but there's smaller rallies that are 4 or 5 days and stuff, and that's how you kind of build it up. And so you've got to look at, like, it's easy to say, like, I could never do that, but what can you do? You know, you focus on what you can do and not what you can't do, and start there, and you figure it out. You know, for me over the years, I have to set up my bikes a bit different because of my injuries. I have to when I'm sleeping in tents and stuff, I know I need to do this and that, and other stuff I have with medication and all sorts of stuff. And so I've like worked it out, like what works for me. And also, like, a big thing is to take out that competitive stuff. You don't have to win these races, as I've clearly shown. You don't have to be competitive, which Lyndon will remind you. But you have to be able to finish. And so, you know, you want to be able to finish, just if nothing else, to get your money's worth. But you've got to, sure. You know, and if you just have to stay in the race. You don't have to be, especially for rally, you don't have to have a very high skill level. You need a basic skill level. You need to have basic sand riding, basic rock riding, basic high speed, but everything just about this level. If you want to go do the roof of Africa, for instance, in gold class, or you want to go do Erzberg or something, you need a skill level of enduro that's like right up here. With rally, you need a skill level here, but a broad skill level of all types of riding, and you need to have good headspace that you can do that level of riding for day after day after day. And so physically, mental strength, get that level, and then work on the mental strength and the preparation, man. If you have the right bike, and you have and you're fit enough, and you're carrying the right spares and the right tools, and your chances of finishing are way better than a guy that's a much better rider than you. Mm-hmm. So start where you are. Start on the bike you have. You don't need to buy a new bike. If you've got an old KDX 200, start on that. Yeah. Get going, you know what I mean? Just start riding and start figuring it out.
I've seen people, small rallies like Hellas Rally in Europe and Baja Rally in the USA, you know, I've seen people riding those rallies on bikes like that, XR 400s. You don't need anything.
The smaller rallies you could ride on a lot of bikes. Yeah.
If you want to get into rally, you know, obviously, like, if you've got serious health problems, you need to understand if you can do it.
Yeah.
But I would say, if you've got some bad wrists and some arthritis and stuff, but you can work around that, and your passion is rally and you want to go and do it, you should do it before you get too old, you know? Like, life's short. Get out there and enjoy it in your own way. Do it in your own way, how you want to do it, and be realistic about results.
And if you can't do rallies, you know, if you pass that stage, you know, in terms of your age, or you're past that stage in terms of physically or whatever it is, Rallies is one little tiny area of this big motorbike family, man. There are trips and tours and guys all over the world that you can go and ride, and you know, just like it doesn't. You don't have to race to get all these experiences. You know, just go ride these places.
And I also have a lot of people come to the rally school because they don't want to race. They want the experience of racing without the pressure of racing. So we call our rally experience in Spain and Portugal and Morocco the rally without the race. You know, it's an exact replica of a rally. Everything, road book, all the electronic waypoints, everything, factory rally bike, but you don't have the pressure of racing. So you can come along, enjoy yourself, you can stop and take pictures, you can recover a little bit. If you want to finish early than others, you can. If you want to cut short halfway through a day, you can. There's no pressure. And I think that's really important. And we're seeing a lot of people contact us that are in that situation where they don't need to go racing, but they want to have the experience. So they want to do a Dakar in Morocco, but they don't want to race. They don't want the expensive
that's a nice
racing.
balance for guys who are in that space. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, cool. Let's move on to Instagram questions. Just a couple from Instagram. MisfitSoul99. Probably an average way. We've covered this, but probably an average question. But Joey, if you could translate your motorcycle experience, your motorcycle experience into life lessons, what would it be? I mean, we've covered a lot already, but have a go answering that one.
No, we covered a lot of that stuff for sure, but I think probably one of the biggest lessons that guys perhaps need to hear right now is that when I was in that hospital in the beginning, I could not face a life of being paralyzed. There was just like, no ways, man, that's just too much. But I had a lot to live for. I've got these kids, I'm married, I'm like, I can't afford just to like flip and end it and check out kind of thing, you know, with my life. But I could handle maybe one more day, or I could handle till lunchtime. And so what I would do is I would say, right, I'm just going to get till lunchtime today. That's what I'm going to do. Or just get through this next physio session or whatever it is. And I would just take it little bit by little bit by little bit. And I got through the day, and I got through the next day, and I got through the next week. And that's how I kind of got my way through that really difficult time, which is exactly what my daughter's doing right now through her challenges. You know, she still has a lot of challenges she deals with every day. But I'm like, hey, one day at a time, just get through one day at a time. And for anybody who's raced rallies or enduros, you'll know there's that time where you're just sitting on your bars and you are just destroyed, and you're like, I want out, man, I'm done. But you take a deep breath, you get a drink of your Camelback, and you go, could I do 10 more meters? And you do that 10, and you do that kilometer, and before you know it, you've got the stage. Before you know it's the next day. And so, yeah, if you want like one good takeaway, it's like, what can you do and what can you get through, and just move as many steps as you can see ahead of you, and then go again from there.
And I think too, when I was preparing for Africa race and I was broken, you know, I was really broken. I was really stressed under a lot of pressure to get everything ready, and it was really hard work. And I remember Camilla just saying to me, everything's going to be fine. Just break it down into achievable pieces, and you're going to make it. Don't worry about it, you know. And I did. That's exactly what I did, and we made it. But man, it was tough. Anyway,
for sure.
Next one from Dan Conrad 54. Positivity, and I'm going to say that word that you don't like, Joey.
I don't mind
Poskitivity. Poskitivity in the face of prolonged adversity. Would love to hear both your thoughts on it. I think we've talked about it so much, you know, staying positive when things try and knock you down. You know, telling yourself,
self-talk.
It's in here. You have to tell yourself, I can do this. I can fix this. I can get through this. I can do this, you know. It's just I can all the time.
And say it out loud in your helmet, you know, shout at yourself, come on man, you got this, we got this. No,
I remember shouting at myself. Someone probably seen it. You look at the best of Dakar 2018 when I'm crashing all the time. And I'm like, come on, Lyndon, come on, Lyndon, you can effing ride a bike. Like, you know, tell yourself, make it fun. Make it fun. Turn that bad situation into something that you laugh about, you know. I'm shouting at myself and telling myself, because I know people are listening, you know, on the when it comes out on media, and I'm like, just shout, say it, get it out, you know. I look back at him like, oh, did I say that? Wow, a lot of swearing. I mean, it's like beep 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 beep. But I'm like, wow, that's how it happened, you know.
Whatever it takes.
It's being positive, and hey, one last thing, it rubs off on everybody around you. Like, if you're positive and you're smiling and you're happy and you're confident, it rubs off on other people around you. I see it in my work, I see it in my rally schools, I see it at home, you know. I'm not the best, sometimes I'm down, you know, and I see it rubs off on the girls, you know, and it's like, man, I need to be more positive, you know, like, stop it, you know. I gotta knock myself in the head and say, come on. And yeah, so it's a big, positivity is a huge part of it all.
Massive.
Okay, Facebook question from Danny Rutham. How is he? This is for you, Joey. How is he still married? And a camel, really, Joey? Couldn't it be a rodent or something like a goat? It had to be a camel. It was intense waiting to hear if he was fine. There's actually no question, but hey, we've heard the camel story, but
that's cool.
Yeah, it's
that's
not.
cool.
But it's not the only animal story, is it? So
no, I hit a cow back in 2014 up on the border of Swaziland and Mozambique, and I ended up lying there in the bush veldt for like 3 hours, and then was medevaced out, and I'd torn open my forearm and exposed the bones, and I'd ripped the tricep muscle off my elbow and separated my collarbone from my shoulders. That was a big one. You know, I've got a mate Juan, who says that if the animal is below your axle, you just keep going. If it's above the axle, that's when you break. So perhaps that's some good advice. Yeah. I've got to find some animals below the axle from now on.
Yeah. Cool. Hey man, been really awesome talking to you. Thanks for taking the time over 2 hours. We always end up talking about stuff.
I know, we could go on and on and on as well. Yeah,
we could go on, but you know, really hope the listeners have enjoyed this. There's one thing that I need to ask you before we end. I keep seeing those orange springs behind you on the shelf, right? And in my head,
I know where this is going.
In my head, right, I need to see a video of you with those strapped to your feet, jumping around the garden.
they might help my legs work a little better. The problem
is that I keep seeing them, and I keep imagining Joey standing on top of them like bang, bang, bang. Kangaroo. That's what's next.
No, it's not. It's certainly not.
I nearly ate so many kangaroos in Australia, and anybody that's in Australia knows how crazy they are. Wow, they're everywhere.
I believe that they hit him. I saw one video of a guy with a 4x4 truck where the kangaroo came across it. It's quite one of these popular videos where it like hit his aerial, and you saw his aerial go like this, but he missed it. It like jumped over it. He managed to just catch it on the aerial.
Wow, no way.
But I'm sure
I did hit a camel.
I think you might have. Oh, did you?
I did. I'm gonna put that. I got it on. I had my camera on as well. Wait a minute. 211 camel.
Dude, we're gonna get censored by
sorry,
Peter.
Camel. Why did I say camel?
We're going to get censored by Peter or something like that on this video when you put it out there with all these animals that you've taken out.
Kangaroo, that's what I'm looking for. I'm writing camel. Kangaroo. Okay, cool. Yeah, I got some cool pictures I'll find to put in here. Yeah, awesome. Well, Joey, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.
It's been super cool.
And it's always cool. And guys, if you enjoyed this, share it with your friends, whether it's on YouTube, any of podcast outlets. It's on all of the top ones. So, you know, Podcast Alley, all of them. It should be on all of them. I'll put all the links out. And anything that's linked to this, photos or links, I'll put in the description below. I'll put a link to Joey's book. Hey, congratulations, man! You just became a top-selling author. Yeah.
Cheers, man.
Best-selling author
for South Africa. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And that means you've sold how many books?
Over 10,000 books in South Africa.
10,000 books.
And so I think we're on about 11,000 now, something like that. But it's been, I mean, anybody who's written a book will tell you that you make nothing from writing a book. You know, there's no major financial reward.
Time in my book for nothing.
No, I promise you, man. It's financially it's a waste, but you know, for me as an individual, it's been fantastic to put that all on paper, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. That was way harder than any of the races, but to write it all down and put it all down, to have it there, you know, forever, you know, for my kids, for you know, just to keep that record is fantastic. You know, I'm stoked I did it. And I get feedback from guys who have read it and be like, hey bro, this is cool, and that's like fantastic. So if anyone has read it and you enjoyed it, drop us a line.
Cool.
You know,
drop me a message.
Cool to hear.
I'll tag you in the post so you can get hold of Joey through the tags.
Perfect.
And people have been asking me lately how my book's going. Still working on it. Still writing. Still organising. Still trying to piece it all together. It's a mammoth task. And the biggest thing for me is like I had a diary. I had a diary with over 300,000 words, and I want to talk about so many things, but there's no way it can all fit in the book. So it's trying to pick out the right things, piece it all together, and also make it usable for the reader, you know, to enjoy it. And it's great. It's going to be a mixture of all sorts of stuff, experiences, things that you don't know about from the video series, things that happened along the journey that I didn't tell anybody about.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's got all kinds of cool stuff. It's got all kinds of technical stuff in as well about the bike, and lists for things that I took with me, which will be really helpful for people. So I'm looking forward to getting it done. But I'm under no illusion, guys. I make myself really busy with a lot of other projects, and it's going to take a while. So I'm working on it. I'm still working on it, and I keep pushing forwards, and hopefully one day we get it out. You will. Looking forward to it, man. Okay, cool, Joey. Thanks ever so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you soon, bro. This lockdown's about getting a bit tiresome now. Yeah, I need to get over there, man. I want to get over there to Europe with you, and come for a ride and come and see your place, and man, that'd be cool. Yeah. Cool. Come get some sun in Spain. Also, bring the family with you. Always. And, we'll see you all soon. Send my regards to everyone over there. And same your side. Thanks, brother. That was really cool. Cheers, man. See you. Bye-bye.